Hi, I'm Gayla Scrivener, ex-corporate girl and now work-from-anywhere adventure seeker. Creating a work-from-anywhere lifestyle isn't without its challenges, but those challenges certainly don't overshadow all the many benefits. What breaks my heart is seeing folks stuck and unhappy in a career and lifestyle when they want more out of life. I believe that we all have the opportunity to create the life of our dreams and earn a living in fun and creative ways to make our dream lifestyle a reality. You too can experience wonderful adventure and freedom as you live life on your own terms. In this weekly podcast, I share experiences when it comes to growing a lifestyle business through guest interviews, content marketing experience and perspectives, virtual leadership lessons, and I'll even throw in some travel adventures. My hope is through all the interviews, the tips, advice, and personal experience, you'll be inspired and motivated to keep going and creating your dream lifestyle. Life's an adventure. There's no time but the present to live life to the fullest. Hi there and welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here today because I'm going to dive right in and talk about keeping your passwords organized and safe. You know, we've got to have passwords for practically everything we do. Everything we do online. Literally everything. It's not only for important sites like our bank accounts, IRA, or other financial accounts, it's also for our healthcare records. And you also must have passwords for any account, like your social, of course, and courses that you purchase. Practically any business that you shop with online and then you purchase. And a lot of times you have to create an account for quicker checkout in the future. Sometimes you can get away with checking out as a guest, but for the most part, you probably at any given moment, you are adding a new account with a new password and it becomes unmanageable and your stuff is out there all over the place. So how do you keep track of them all? It's tough, right? I know that it can be overwhelming and tough, and it doesn't have to be. You just need to create a system for yourself. Now, in my line of work, I not only keep track of my passwords. That can be overwhelming just by itself, but I'm also responsible for the safekeeping of my clients' passwords to their accounts so we can help manage whatever they've contracted us to manage. So today in this show, I'm going to share tips of how I manage passwords and offer tips to help keep them secure. First, as a business owner, it's important to keep passwords, secure. But if you're also responsible for the passwords on behalf of your clients, well, then it is super important to develop a good system of password organization and management and get a policy. Write up that policy of what you're doing and what your part is in your due diligence in keeping your client's passwords safe. I'm going to share a few best practices when it comes to setting up a password. Now, we've been working with passwords for so long because the internet's been around for quite some time now. Everything we do, we have passwords for, so we should know these tips that I'm about to share, and it should be second nature. And even way back in 2018 in episodes 37 and 38, I shared these tips and many of these same points from today's episode, but I think it's still a great reminder for all of us. We just have to kind of stop and remind ourselves, yes, we've got our due diligence in our passwords. Don't get sloppy at it. So first, never use the same password for every single account you have. And it's so easy to just remember one password and use it for everything. But if a hacker is able to crack one account's password, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go through every account that they can think of, and they are going to try that password. because they know that it's human nature for individuals to just use passwords like that and just have one password. And they have these slick computer programs to do it in a blink of an eye. So if they're going to nab your password from one account and you're using the same password on every other account, you're putting your security in your own hands if you do that. And number 2, this is kind of piggybacking on number 1 and reiterating. Don't reuse passwords for sites with sensitive information like bank access. Now, and like I said, it's a reiteration of 1, but it goes in a little deeper. Let's say you're like, no, I'm not going to use the same password from my Facebook account that I do my bank account. Well, that's good. You don't want to do that. But perhaps all of your bank accounts access, maybe you have a bank account, you have your IRA, you have maybe 2 different banks that you use, and you use the same password for all 3 bank accounts. Then if your password is compromised and they get into one account, they can get into all of them. So just don't do that. Third tip on secure passwords, on setting up passwords, include words, numbers, symbols, and upper and lower case and all over in your password. If you need to remember it, like for my bank access, I have a phrase which ties into point number 4, create lengthy passwords. When you're using things like words, numbers, symbols, upper, lower case, all of that, get it quite lengthy. You might have a phrase, a gibberish phrase, incorporating symbols and numbers will help you secure your password. Because the longer the password is, the longer it takes for the hacker to figure it out. If you have a short 5 to 8 character password, it's a lot easier than one that's 10, 15, 25, 30 characters long. So really, don't let that be overwhelming to you, but you need to have lengthy passwords and change it up. And there's a lot of sites now that don't even allow you to have passwords that are below like 8 characters or maybe even 10 characters. And don't use passwords that are easily guessed, like the word password. Now, many years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was like the generic. When you created a password, the default password was password. People don't do that as much anymore, but I am so surprised at how many folks still use a password. Don't do it. Don't be one of those folks. And don't make it just really easily guessed, like your name and year of birth and things like that. And don't use adjacent keyboard combinations. Like what I'm talking about there is like doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or QWERTY, because they're all consecutive right there on the keyboard. Don't do that. And don't use, this should be a no-brainer, but don't use your social security number, your phone number, or family member names or anything like that. That should be a no-brainer, but I still see people, it's like, I can remember that, so I'm going to put that information in. Don't do that. Just don't. Just don't. And then whenever possible, use 2-step authentication. That is super important. And sometimes when you are running a business and you delegate and you have that 2-step authentication incorporated, it gets a little cumbersome, but it's certainly doable. If you're supposed to have complicated passwords, how are you supposed to keep track of all of those? It's really hard, isn't it? And on top of that, you've got to change your password every 90 days or so. That's the best practice, and some sites force you to do that. Yes, you could write them all down. And I know several people that do that. They have those little password notebooks, and they write them down, and when they have to change it, they erase it or white it out and do it again. If you're somebody that's aspiring to work from anywhere, that's just not a good practice. What if you lose it? What if you lose that little passbook? And what if it's misplaced? What if somebody naps it? That's just not doable. And what if you're somewhere and you need that password notebook and you don't have it? You can't easily get your fingers on it. It's just cumbersome. And I know that the use of passwords is annoying, but it is necessary. And all these accounts are doing it for our own good. They're trying to do their due diligence on keeping your information safe. I don't like to have to use my brain cells to come up and be creative in that respect and trying to remember passwords and being clever in creating passwords and going through all of those 8 points on having more secure passwords. And there's just no way I can remember all of them because I'm sure you're like me. You have a cajillion accounts to keep track of. So when you're super busy as well and you're trying to get into a site and you can't remember the password, it is super annoying. The problem is, and especially when the problem came to being when I started having staff and I needed to share passwords with my staff so that they can do their jobs. And managing that and be more protected as a company. And then with our clients needing to share passwords with us and having to remember those passwords and really using those, we needed to come up with a policy to help do the best that we can to help secure those passwords and not have to remember them. So the best solution that I believe is to make sure that you have a password manager. And there are many password management systems out there, but the one that I have been very happy with and I use every single day is LastPass. LastPass, well, for that matter, all password manager systems use encryption technology and have features that help safeguard and organize your passwords. And that encryption technology is super important. And the features that it has as far as sharing passwords is quite handy and phenomenal. If you're just responsible for your own accounts, I think LastPass is super handy because you don't have to worry about all those tips above. I don't. In fact, when I need to generate a password, I let LastPass generate a password and I set like how many characters, if we're going to use letters and numbers and symbols and all of that stuff. I let LastPass generate that. And then I fill it in and then I save it in my password, in my password file there in LastPass. And that helps so much. And in fact, my Facebook password is super long. I mean, ridiculously long. And there is absolutely no way I can remember it. But since so many people have had their Facebook account hacked, I just prefer to make it long and complicated. And I did not go through the trouble on trying to remember it because how I get access through it is I log in to Facebook through my LastPass account. My staff logs in to my Facebook account if they need to through LastPass, and they can't even see the password. I can view it, but I shared it with my staff and they can't even, again, they don't have access to view it. So they can't log into it or copy and paste it anywhere. And what I like about LastPass is I can name and file and categorize the different passwords for different purposes. And I have file folders for client passwords, for my business passwords, for my husband's passwords, because I am responsible for all the passwords in our household. I have those organized so I can quickly find them if I need to. And I can also quickly manage them that if a client leaves, for example, I can see all of their passwords all in one place, and then I can delete them out of LastPass and not even worry about them anymore. Now, like I said, when you start having to delegate tasks, and in order for that person or agency, independent contractor, freelancer, whoever, in order for them to do the job that they need to, you may need to share a password or two. And whenever possible, if your account can add a user so that you can create a username and password for them, that's the best practice instead of sharing your own username and password. But for systems like, for example, MailChimp has the capability of assigning users or so many users depending on the paid plan. And that is the best practice. But if you have the free version of MailChimp, you only have one user. It's yours. And if you're starting to delegate MailChimp tasks, then you're going to have to share your admin username and password for that person to delegate. And instead of, oh, please, just don't email your username and password. Please don't text your username and password all in one text. And I mean, just get a system like LastPass and then share the password through that, because the share will encrypt everything and then they can log into your system using the LastPass system. And typically, unless you specifically give access to it, the person that you share the password with, they can't hit the little eyeball and see the password. And there's very, very few cases that I have my employees able to see passwords. I just want to protect them in knowing that, hey, all they have to do is click a button to launch the program in LastPass, and then it comes up, and they don't have to worry about the passwords. They don't have to worry about having the passwords in the wrong hands. And really, the only account that I have to remember is my LastPass access. One password to get into everything. And in fact, my husband sometimes like, oh, what's my password for this, that, and the other, because he's trying to do something on his phone or his laptop or whatever. And I just go to my LastPass and I'll search for it and I'll find it and let him know. And I use that as, LastPass, and all of my staff have the web extension for LastPass, and they never have, it's our policy, our Scrivener Solutions policy, to never ever use the browser's autofill function. And I know that it's super easy to let Chrome just autofill and save your passwords. I'm no security expert, but it's my opinion and my belief that is just not the safest thing to do. It is just not as secure, because even I can get in and see those passwords, and I am no hacker and smart enough to hack into other people's computers. But oh my goodness, if I can get it, find it, anybody can. So try not, I find it best practice to avoid using the autofill in any browser. I just do. I know it's easy because it's like, oh, I just want Chrome just to autofill everything for me. Instead, using a password manager like LastPass, that would be a better practice. There's more of a level of protection there. I also have the phone app of LastPass, and I'm able to, when I'm on the go and I don't have my laptop around or my tablet around, I have the LastPass app on my phone. I can look things up and I can do what I need to do when I'm on the go. And I can use it. It has the thumbprint feature on it, and so I use that to open up LastPass to launch a program that I might need to launch. So when you must share your passwords, or when you must remember your passwords, because we all have to, you need to do your due diligence to be as safe as possible. And I think LastPass or systems like it is a smart choice. I don't mean for this to be a commercial for LastPass. It's just a tool that we use and have been using for years, and I really believe that is a sound system for anyone in your household or your business to use. I want to reiterate, especially if you're responsible for any of your clients' passwords, you got to implement a policy to secure their passwords. You're responsible for their stuff. So you need to be thinking about, how are you going to keep this secure? Let your clients know what your policy is. Now, making the investment in a password management system like LastPass is well worth it, and a smart thing to do for any growing business. I mean, on a personal level, it's just smart. There's a free level of LastPass, but if you've got a few clients under your belt, there's some features in the paid version that it's worth making that investment. It's a smart business investment. Then go ahead and go one step further, and in your client contracts or somewhere on your website or some way, let your clients know what you do for passwords, because they're going to feel a little antsy on sharing passwords. And have their mind be rest assured that you are thinking for their well-being as well, and incorporate and share a password protection policy. And taking the time to set things up and to be organized when it comes to your passwords will save you a ton of time in the future and headache. And getting your policy in order of how you manage passwords is just well worth it. Just make the decision on what your company policy is going to be, and get it written down and share with your clients. Share with your staff. Make that policy known. I have to say, just a disclaimer, I guess, we're never 100% safe, because there's always hackers everywhere looking for new and creative ways to cause havoc to our world. That's just the world we live in now. And the best that we can do, the very best that we can do, is to protect ourselves and our clients' information, while at the same time making it as easy as possible to function in an efficient manner. We've got to just do our due diligence. And products, password managers like LastPass is a great efficiency tool that you don't have to use brain cells to remember every single password. And you can use the tools incorporated in LastPass to make complicated passwords that you don't necessarily have to remember. And then as long as your main master password to LastPass is something long, a phrase that incorporates numbers and symbols, and it may take a bit to type out, but it's easy for you to remember, then do that. Remember, the longer the password, the harder it is to tap into it. Well, I'm just going to wrap things up right now. I think I've hammered into that point long enough for this week. And I hope that this episode has been helpful to you, because I just hate it when I hear folks when they get hacked. And a lot of times we get hacked because we get sloppy. That's what it is. We know what it takes to have a good password, but we're busy. And we get sloppy, and we get in a hurry. So we just make it easy for that moment. And then something happens and we get hacked. Just take the time. If you don't have a password manager system right now, look into it. Look into systems like LastPass. There's other systems out there, and just make a policy for yourself. If it's just you, just make a little household policy about how you're going to handle passwords. And then as you get clients and you need their passwords, make it known of how you're going to help them protect their passwords. Well, again, thanks for listening. And until next time, have a fantastic week.